Good?
Good.
Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, we're here with George Andriopoulos, the CEO of Launchpad 516, and then the the architect and co-leader of Speak.
Right.
So thanks for jumping on.
Yeah.
I know we generally struggle with these intros because I don't know how to start.
Yeah, no.
I never know how to start, and generally we'll just start talking, and then it happens. But this one was a cold, like just straight
Cold
into
turkey.
it type of start.
That's cool. I'm
so
into
I'm
it.
cool with that.
I'm into it.
But yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what your focus is right now.
Yeah, sure. So more so than anything, I'm a husband. I'm a dad of 4 kids.
Wow.
From right here, Long Island, New York, Farmingdale. Grew up here, live here now. My kids go to school here. I started my company, Launchpad 516, 10 years ago. This is actually our 10th anniversary this year. Which
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a huge deal for us. And it's a management consulting firm. So basically we fix broken businesses, or we fix businesses that are looking to grow and come up with a strategy to grow. I started this 10 years ago out of a need to kind of start my own business that I could be there for my kids at school, be the class dad, go on all the field trips, coach all the teams. I needed to build my schedule around it. I was in the middle of a divorce at the time, and it was a thing that I just wanted to go, all right, let me use my skill set and build the schedule around my personal life and kind of see where it goes. And here we are 10 years later doing this, and I've had the opportunity to do a lot of fun stuff because of the success of Launchpad.
Yeah, so you've done, you did TEDx Farmingdale, and then you created your own speaking company based off of that, speaking events company, and that's how we met. But I really don't have any of your background. I don't know, like, what did you do before you started Launchpad 516? I don't even fully understand Launchpad as a business.
Nobody does really. You can ask my parents what I do for a living, and they're like, business,
Something,
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an interesting story. So I actually was trained in the pharmacy industry. I went to school at St. John's University for pharmacy school.
Go Red Storm.
You go Red Storm. Yep. I think they were the Red Men right before I started. I was the first year of the Red Storm.
Got it.
Nice.
I have a funny story about that too, going to school there. I actually, if you're a sports fan, I went to school when they had like one of their best teams. So it was like for basketball. So they were successful in, like, I think they were the baseball NCAA Division I champs when I got there, and the soccer NCAA Division I champs. But yeah, basketball, they had like Ron Artest, Zendon Hamilton, Eric Barkley, Felipe Lopez, like their biggest names,
It was always, I went to Syracuse, so it was always like Syracuse versus St. John's for like who's the king of New York basketball for college.
Well,
so.
they're the Orange Men, right? And we were the Red Men. So,
it was like perfect. Yeah. Now they're the Orange.
I love Syracuse, by the way. I visited a friend up there in my freshman year, and I was like, oh, I got to transfer.
It's not a bad time. Gorgeous. Not a bad time.
But I went into the gym at Alumni Hall there. I think it's called Lou Carnesecco Hall now. Just to shoot, they had like free ball going on with some friends, and here's like 4 out of the starting 5 were there.
It's unbelievable.
And we were like, yeah, can we play pickup game? Yeah, sure. And I'm okay.
And you're running it back with the...
It was like a 5-year-old playing a grown man. It was crazy. But I went to pharmacy school. I worked in the pharmacy industry from like my freshman year in college through 2011. So it was 14 years of my life spent in the pharmacy industry, independent pharmacy. And, I learned everything I know about business fundamentals in that world, right? Like, we had a great mentor. I worked with some family, and we had a great mentor going into the business that kind of taught us the fundamentals of how to run a business from the financial side, from the operations side. And we did it. And, there was a successful business behind that. And I learned from, my family members that I worked with a ton. But as good as we might have been at the business side of things, and I'll just speak for myself here, I was a horrible manager, like just horrific. And I would say all of us were not great at it, initially. And, you learn over time and stuff like that. But it was just so bad, like from the management standpoint, that you come out of it going like, there's got to be a lesson here that you learn.
Right.
So I remember in 2005, we had hired this management consulting firm. I remember it was the George S. May Company. It was the oldest consulting firm in the world. They don't exist anymore. And it was like these 3 old guys came in with their laptops and spreadsheets and everything. And, you're scared.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to rip
because
apart your business.
They're going to rip it apart. And I'm really just at the time an employee there. And,
Right.
you fear for yourself. And I remember I wasn't happy at the time. And I'm sure they weren't happy either. And then they come up with these plans and you're kind of like, oh, this is smart, and they were there for a few weeks and implementing. And long story short is that a year later, the business was just running so much smoother. It created the ability to, for the business to grow without imploding, because that's kind of what was happening.
Right.
Right. And I remember we wrapped up with them and started seeing the fruits of that labor. And I was like, I want to do this one day. When I am done with my pharmacy career, I want to do this. So I moved from independent pharma to more corporate pharma in the last couple of years that I was in it. And, I did some really good stuff there where I excelled. I probably had like the best couple of years of my career, making the most money, making the most amount of change that I had ever made, in the business that I was working for, and just kind of proved to myself like, yeah, you're pretty good at this. Like, this is a skill of yours. But with that came just, ego. And it was like the first time I was like uncaged in my life, and it was like the success and the money and everything. And it was just, it all kind of came to a head where I don't even recognize that guy. You look back and go, who the hell was that guy?
Right.
Just like egotistical and like, thought he was better than everybody. I see like the Facebook memories from 2011 and I'm horrified. I don't delete those posts because I get to see them every year and just see like the growth that I've had.
Wow.
Which is incredible to see. I remember this post. This is the one big one. It's actually coming up soon. I remember the date. It's like June, where I said something like, every day was like, I'm going to run through a brick wall today, And one day the post was like, have you ever gotten to that point in your career where you get so good at what you do that you just know that nobody could touch you? ... Well, I am 10 times better than any of you on that day, something like that.
Yeah.
And
You were
people are
confident.
commenting like, you're an asshole, dude. Like friends of mine, like, you're an asshole. I was like, no, I don't think you understood. I'm saying I'm better than you at everything. This was my post.
It has some humility to it that you're not deleting that post though. Like that's,
I don't want to.
That's
I
pretty
want
amazing.
to remind myself every year, because when everything fell apart for me, it was divorce and really almost career ruin and, some bad choices, and was kind of left with nothing in a house alone. My two little kids who were like 1 and 3 at the time, with their mom, and you go, all right, this is me.
A reality check. Yeah.
This isn't other people. This is me.
Right.
Well, that takes a certain level of, like self-control to understand that it and to have that moment. A lot of people don't have that moment of, I'm the person that needs to change.
Yeah. And it's funny because I tell this story in a vague way, just because it's not just my story to tell, right? So
right.
The details aren't really necessary of that. So people will infer like, oh, was this drugs? Or it was nothing like that. It was my ego was my drug, and it's like, if you've ever been at that point where you're just, that starts blowing up inside, it's almost like you look at a wrestler, back then, The Rock, Stone Cold, like these overinflated personalities.
Yeah.
That's what I was.
But you had that character was actually you.
It was real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Character.
I was out of my mind. Yeah. It was out of my mind.
Yeah.
And worked my ass off during that time, which is the sad part, because did some really good things and, blew it all up. So the whole, the genesis of who I am now, or who I, hope to be, is that I just sat down and go, I just got to focus on my kids. Like, I never intended to be divorced, so I'm not going to be a divorced dad. I'm just going to be a dad, So it was, let me just work on, being a dad to my kids and focusing on that relationship. And then it turned into focusing on my interpersonal relationships with other people, because those were broken too. And, it's like 2 years into it, 1.5 years, 2 years into it, and you go, okay, I think I'm on the right track as far as that's concerned. But there was like something missing. I felt like, I always say this number, I felt like 80% of myself, and the thing that was missing was the work side. Because at that time I was just writing out my savings and not working and doing like some independent consulting. I didn't know that I was going to do this. I had always expected to just go back to pharma, but it was something about pharma that was causing me PTSD.
Yeah.
Because once I started growing a little and evolving a little, you go, I don't want to go back to that guy.
You're not the type of person anymore that wants to succeed in that area.
Yeah.
And that was the person
almost
you had to be.
doing the same thing.
That was the person you had to be to succeed in that area, is what you thought.
It was what I thought. It was
Right.
all me, right?
Right.
It was what I thought.
Right.
It was in this environment of it was competitiveness, but not in a healthy way. It was who's got more money, who's got the nicer car, who can carry more cash in their pocket. Just carry $4,000 or $5,000 in cash in 2 wads in my pockets for what?
Just to have it.
Yeah.
Just to have it. Just to have it. So that I could pull it out and you see that big wad of cash and you go, oh. Now you're lucky if I have $6 in my pocket.
Yeah.
Right? You're lucky if you see me with more than $6, on any given day, right?
Yeah.
And so that whole genesis turned into I feel like 80% of a person right now. What's missing? And you go, it's the work. I was good at what I did, and I was good at building business, and I was good at strategy, and I think I can get even better and learn from these mistakes. So. And then I conceptualized Launchpad 516 and just spent, it was a solid 8 months just coming up with the business model, what this would be. And I designed this whole thing. I still have this chart. It's the size of this table. I drew it out, this bubble chart, and services, growth consulting, and what is that? I keep that as this was the initial roadmap for Launchpad. And we kind of got there. It's evolved along the way, but we kind of got there, and it was I didn't expect it to really be successful. I just needed to pay the bills.
How do you build a business like that from the ground up? Because it is a very ambiguous almost field, and the big companies that do it are the big four and the large management consulting agencies in the city. How do you start something from the bottom instead of having that? They have large accounting firms and they just say, okay, we're going to create this division, and it's not a huge expense for that type of business, or it's just an investment in new people.
Right. How
do you do something like that? Did you have, obviously financially you were okay at the time to do something. You weren't struggling for your next meal. So you had the ability to invest time and energy into something. But how do you find the people? How do you find the clients? What's the first step when you start that?
Yeah, so I bootstrapped, honestly. I wasn't struggling for my next meal, but I was definitely at the time getting to the point where I was struggling for the next month. Yeah. I was month to month for sure. My savings had dwindled. I was in the middle of divorce, and I'm trying to figure out how am I going to pay child support even. You know what I mean? It was a tough thing. I bootstrapped. I didn't have any delusions of grandeur. You talked about the big companies. In accounting, it's the big four. In consulting, it's the big six, right? So you have the Bains of the world, McKinsey's, all those companies. And I'm not going to be Bain or McKinsey, at the onset. I just want to work with small local businesses because I think I could help them. Looking back, creating all my policies and procedures, I go all right, what have I learned over the years? What did I do wrong? That I've always been a sponge. So you want to watch what you've done wrong, what others have done wrong, and how can I build a strategy around that? So I kind of laid all that out. I did it in a really professional way. So my preparation was right. It was on point. I had books, binders of stuff I'd put together for this little nothing business. And then I just went out there. I know that you have to put risk out there in order to do things right. So I rented space in an office, and I didn't have to. I got an assistant that was part-time. And we started there, and it was I was renting 2 desks in somebody else's office. Funny enough, it was an extra office room that they had, so they didn't really use it. But half of the office was my neat OCD, area, and then they have garbage bags full of crap stacked in the other side of the room,
Right.
And I'm just pretending I don't see it. But just went out and did the work. I was right in Farmingdale Village, my first office. And so I went out, I walked the block, every day, even though I didn't need it, every day I got coffee from 2 or 3 different places. Every day I got breakfast or lunch from 2 or 3 different places.
Just became visible.
Yep. I always went somewhere else. And people know me in Farmingdale anyway. I'm from here. And so, you just do that. And all of a sudden, this empty store is turning into Charlotte's Frozen Yogurt, They're looking for a marketing. Well, all right, well, this is a consulting firm, but I know how to build websites. Let me just do that, and then we got a couple of others, and all of a sudden you're just building reputation. So once it became clear that this would work, the plan was, let's not leverage social media, which was really at that time, 2013, starting to become a tool for businesses. Let's not leverage social to create a facade first. Let's do the damn thing the right way, right? Like, we got to build the reputation so that you can ask him, how is George? Oh, he's phenomenal. So that was the initial plan. Like, you can't build the whole thing on, like a house of cards, because the whole thing will fall apart. Right. You have to actually have that real reputation.
I think that's a lot of the issue with, like the gurus on social and the 20-year-old life coaches that are out there right now. It's the people that you find are having the most success on social and that are building the biggest brands have done something, and they're just showing what they did. Yeah. And they're just showing how they did it. Yeah. And people are gravitating towards that. If you try to come at it and say, oh, I built up all these, this is how you're going to build your business, but you've never done it before. Right. Who's going to listen to you, and why should they? Right. Right. And that was kind of the whole numbers, right? That was kind of the whole thing, right? The vanity numbers. But the whole thing for me was, I looked at those people, and I had, once I had a modicum of success in this business, I kind of knew that next step was like, I have to get out there myself, because, all right, 2014, all of a sudden now, this like old office building, where we went from renting 2 desks in somebody else's office to we had 3 separate offices in the building because we're growing so fast. And I wound up partnering with another guy in the building to start a marketing agency. He was an IT guy. And all of a sudden, 2014, he's buying a building, and we're like figuring out, okay, how can we map this new building out so that we can have all our businesses in it? And, then you start marketing the company and put it out there. But 2015, we hit a plateau where I was kind of like, all right, what's the next step? And then you look at, thought leadership, and you go, all right, I think George has to become the face of Launchpad, which I didn't want for a lot of reasons. I was just coming off of a couple of years of not being the best dude, right? So I didn't know if my personal reputation was going to hinder the business. And you think about it in a way that's like very high school, my personal reputation, like who gives a shit? I noticed that 90% of the time when you think other people are thinking about you, they're not. They're focused on their own shit, right? Like when you're thinking about you, they might be thinking of, they're not, right? Because they're also thinking about themselves, thinking, oh, is he worrying about me? Yeah. No. No. And so so I go, all right, let's take this chance, and then you start marketing yourself. And I looked at other thought leaders out there, the Gary V's, and you can have your thoughts about all of them, but they're all successful, right? I'm not like the biggest fan of Gary V. He's toned this down, but I never liked like the extreme language, and I use the language all the time. I'm a big potty mouth, but like I'm not a fan of it in that way. The biggest thing with him was I hated that he used to tell people, quit college, leave college. Like, you don't need college. And I'm like, no, man. Because like when it doesn't work out, there's got to be some, if you have the ability to go to college, just do it, like finish it, be a little patient. Right. But if you don't, fine, like go out and do your thing. No problem. But I used to hate that he did that with people. And so when I started putting my thought leadership out there, it was like, I always tag myself as like the relatable, semi-successful guy. I'm not them. I'm not a billionaire. I'm not looking to buy the jets, right? Like, I'm you 6 months from now. I'm you 2 years from now. I'm you 5 years from now, or I'm you next week, right? Like, you may think I'm ahead of you, and in other ways I'm behind you, right? But like, if you think I'm ahead of you, it might just be just this much ahead of you. So like, let me teach you a couple of things I learned, and take it or leave it. I think that's the right approach. I mean, and even with people like Gary Vee or those other thought leaders in certain industries, you have to take it with a grain of salt, everything they say, or you have to just look at it as, how can I apply this to me? Because you're not them. Like, he's a machine, Gary Vee. Yeah, he loves to work. He loves to spend 18-hour days doing his thing. And when he was saying, oh, this is how I did it, you kind of have to look at it as, I'm not that person. I'm never going to be the, I've done some 18-hour days, but I'm never going to be the 7 days a week, 18 hours a day person. Right. I'm never going to be that like hustle, let's drop everything and just do this type of person. But you have to apply all those learnings from people like you, from people like Gary and other thought leaders out there to yourself and say, how can I use the teaching there? How can I use that thought?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's like, was it Alex Ramosi? I love his content. I love what he does. I don't know if you pay attention to his stuff, but a lot of what he does is like, just don't buy lunch or don't cook lunch or don't cook dinner. Just buy all your meals. It's only, $30 a day if you buy all your meals. And if you look at it, you go, okay, cool. I'll probably spend twice as much as I spend on groceries. But that's only applicable if you're going to spend that extra half hour that you save making money or doing business or doing something productive.
Right.
So there's nuance to everything.
It's not a one size fits all. Because if you said that in my house, so my wife now is like, she's an accountant, so we'll put that out there, right? So she's always the one that's like, no, this is where we need to save. We're only going out to dinner once a week. So you look at our house, which is 6 of us now, 2 of us and 4 kids. That doesn't work. We're both out. Okay, yeah, and maybe in that extra half hour I could spend making money and make 10 times as much as our grocery would cost for the month. But also you got to look at the other side, and this is what I've tried to do, the practical side of like, there's a human being there too. There's not just the person that can turn the machine on and just make money and whatever. Like, there's other sides of it. So guess what? I took time out of my day yesterday to go prep our dinner for all of us and barbecue, and that's therapeutic to me. I like that, So like, I need that sometimes. I need to go and just turn my brain off and cook dinner. You know what I mean? So I've always tried to just kind of look at things like that and be relatable. I haven't really had much success on, I guess, the social side of being that guy, the Gary V out there, whatever. And so you do other things. We had seen when we went for that big push, like George is going to be the face of Launchpad. All right, we'll go out on the award circuit, public speaking, all that kind of stuff. And I've always done public speaking, but to me, like keynoting on an industry stage about strategy or marketing, whatever, like it's not speaking. It's just like, give me 3 slides and I could talk for 6 hours,
right.
Talk your face off. But really engaging with people, that to me is public speaking. So we did the whole thing, and the award circuit it kind of became easy, because if you have a good resume and you've done stuff, you're always going to win the award. Right. So did like top CEO for LIBN, excellence in communication, 40 under 40, all that kind of stuff. And it was like, all right, fine.
Did it help
we got
the
that,
business?
but it does in a way, because it further legitimizes you, because people will Google you.
Right.
And if that first 2 pages is like, Long Island Coalition Against Bullying Man of the Year, and top CEO 2016 and 40 under 40, whatever, they're gonna go, all right, this guy's the real deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, but to a degree, like, don't let it then turn into vanity, because I could have kept doing it and had 20 awards a year and filled up my case and go, look at me, but it's not really creating impact. So you move on. That's when public speaking started for me in a big way. Telling real stories that were like important to me. And I remember I had this moment where it became very apparent how to be real and how to tell a story. And that's actually why I wore this ring today, just to kind of remind myself. 2018, of all the awards I've won, the honors I've had, there's 2 that stick out to me. One was, I mentioned before, the Long Island Coalition Against Bullying honored me at their annual gala a year or 2 ago, which was a big deal for me. 2018, I made it into the Hall of Fame of Farmingdale High School.
Oh, wow.
Right? Cool.
And Farmingdale to me is like, my first love.
I'm from Massapequa, so don't hold it against me.
You.
we're 2 against 1, because I went to Farmingdale.
Farmingdale,
Yeah, I know.
We won't talk about it.
I won't talk about how Farmingdale beats you every year.
What's a Taylor? What's a Taylor?
Your worst nightmare. I remember getting that phone call that I was nominated and then was being honored alongside 2 like legends, right? Like the other 2 guys. One of the guys that basically started youth council in our district years ago, was a phys ed teacher, like, guy's a legend. And this other guy who was like, had technology in NASA that's like on the moon right now, like crazy. Oh, wow. And it was a very emotional time for me, right? And I went through the process and kind of took the time during that thing to really experience it. Like, writing the speech, the catharsis, working with the students, because the students contact you from the school newspaper, the Paper Lion, and and interview you, and to think back like, oh, I was the sports editor of the Paper Lion when I was in high school. And when I wrote my speech, I remember looking at my yearbook photo, because they always show that in the
always
on the screen
yeah.
when you're getting the award. And it was this long-haired, George in 1997 who didn't have a care in the world and thought he knew what was going to happen in the future. And I wrote the words in my speech that talked about my failures, and I wrote the words that I don't deserve this honor, but I do know that I have spent the last, at that time, 10 years or so, trying to become a citizen of this planet that deserves something like this. Because for the prior years to that, like, I was a less than contributory citizen of this planet.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to continue every year trying to like earn this honor and earn this award. And what I did during that time was I bought this ring, right? So my class ring, and I didn't wear my, you buy a class ring.
I don't even think I bought my.
I don't think I got one.
After you graduate, you put it down and you don't wear it. And the only difference is two differences in this one. That one was gold. It was 90s, right? And so I ordered this one, and I took out the ones. I remembered the ring like backwards and forwards, what was on it. So I reordered it from Jostens, that company.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the one side, rather than putting sports stuff, I put like 2018 Hall of Fame, HOF on it.
That's cool.
Right. And it was like this full circle moment, because when everything happened to me, right, in 2011, well, I made everything happen, that happened to me, and divorce and career ruin. I was just at my lowest point. Like, I was struggling, and it's like, you blown through your savings, and all of a sudden, like, you're like, all right, I need to liquidate. And I remember I had a bunch of jewelry that I just like sold, and I accidentally, or I don't even remember, I sold my class ring. I remember hearing like, oh, these are worth money, these
right.
things, they're big and heavy, and I sold my class ring. And when I kind of realized it a couple of years later, I was so sad about it, just because I know what Farmingdale means to me. And this isn't like, Michael Jordan selling his championship ring, right? Let's not, but to me it meant something.
Yeah.
And so I bought this ring, honoring the Hall of Fame as a full circle moment, and continue to wear it a lot. And I remember putting this post up on Instagram where I told the story of this. Most engagement I ever had on a post.
Wow.
And then I did a talk all about that, a public speaking talk. And every person in that audience was engaged. And I was like, oh, this is how you tell a story.
This is storytelling 101. Yeah.
This is how you do it. And it became so important to me to just not only do public speaking to help people, but it's a revenue stream, fine. But yeah, let me do this thing. Let me see how many people I could help. Let me tell the story, and then you tell the story in this catharsis. You kind of clear the stuff out of the basement. You move on to the next story and the next story. And so, me being me, I'm going to try and achieve big things. So if I'm doing public speaking, I'm going to do a TED Talk, right? And I did one, I'm going to do two, I'm going to do three. Yeah, I'm done with this. I'm going to produce TEDx events, and that's kind of how that whole thing happened, and I brought TEDx Farmingdale to Farmingdale for 4 years. I co-produced a couple of TED Women events, and that's how that whole thing sort of happened to me. And I quickly moved from, even though I'm still on stage, to behind the stage, because I loved helping other people create that platform for themselves too.
What was the drive to, you blew through like 4 years, just real fast right there.
Yeah.
Of like I did my first TED Talk. I did some public speaking. I did my first TED Talk. I did 2, 3, 4, started producing. What was the drive to make that happen? Was it monetary? Was it you just loved the feeling of those types of events and getting that story out there? I
just do things, right? So you set a business up in a way that it can scale, right? That's one thing I've always said to my clients, and with my own business. If I'm going to build it, I'm going to take the time to plan on whether it makes $100,000 a year or $100 million a year. It's going to operate the same way. So it's set up to scale. So the more it grows, it's ready for that, right? That's like business 101 for me. You have to set it up. with scaling in mind, so that later on when you succeed, it doesn't become a detriment to you. And so as Launchpad kept growing, I had the ability to kind of move laterally and do other stuff, you know, invest in this business, start this business, start a greeting card company. Okay, it didn't take off. You know, we move on from that, start this. You know, I always have my nonprofit endeavors that I do. And I don't know, something just struck me at that time. Like it was like a calling, you know, I just got obsessed with it. Yeah, it helps business because you're out there. Every piece of that is content that you can use for something else. But it was just more than that to me. You know, it was like something was just calling me saying like, this is where I need to be right now. And then you meet other people in the industry and they have a profound effect on you. You know, I've evolved a lot in the last 12 years. I would say 2011 is the divider. Is Act 1 is before that and Act 2 after that.
Sure, you had a death.
Yeah.
That was your death.
Yeah.
Your ego death.
Yeah. And so Act 2 for me was always going to be, I don't know, something that just meant more. Like the money didn't matter. And I'm not trying to be like all benevolent on that. Money matters. But to me, I just want the comfortable life that I want and to be able to plan for my kids. And beyond that, it doesn't matter.
I mean, that's the way you started the podcast. It was like, first and foremost, I'm a father. Like that's what you said.
Yeah.
And that's your identity now.
It's my identity. It's 100% my identity.
It seems like you always seem to pivot in a direction and you're always trying new things.
Yeah.
You said for like, you know, you tried the greeting cards things, and how long do you give something before you say, I don't know, maybe we should pivot a different way? It seems like you're very good at pivoting and finding out, because you went from pharma to consulting to speaking to
marketing
events,
agency,
I mean,
different things.
The amount of pivots that you're making, and you know, we're both business owners here, and we're making pivots all the time too. But sometimes it's scary, right? Because it's like, oh crap, I got to try this, but it might not work. You know, how do you get so comfortable with doing that?
It's a great question. So pivoting is a big buzzword now, right? Ever since the pandemic, and it's true. Pivot really is the word. I look at it as evolving, right? Businesses need to evolve, right? And you could have a business that doesn't have to. When I was in pharma, and let me make this clear, pivoting from pharma to what I do now was not just because I wanted to pivot. Pharma didn't want me anymore, right? Like, or didn't want that guy anymore.
Right.
So, but pivoting since then and evolving, it became really important to me to understand the life cycles of business and the life cycles of the individual, right? Like the human beings behind it. So with the greeting card thing, that was fun. The greeting card thing started out of like one of my best friends and I back in our early 20s. We'd be at the bars and he'd get hammered and he'd go, what if we came up with this greeting card thing and they were just like really like fucked up greeting cards?
Yeah.
You know? Like, I don't even want to use some of these examples, but just really like screwed up greeting cards.
Send us some pictures. We'll pop them in.
Yeah. I'll send you. Yeah. So what if we do that? And we had come up with this character, this bear, initially, and then we changed it to this. We called it Rudy Greetings, Rudy, and this Rudy character was this stick figure, and
I feel like you should relaunch it. I feel like that would be like the dark humor would do it.
I'll tell you why it stopped in a minute. But like that came from that, and it was like we would always bring it up. And then when I got to the point where my business is successful and I have a platform now to launch these things, I called him. I was like, let's do this. You know, and I have my other partner from the marketing agency and one of his buddies. And let's just do it, the four of us, for fun. We all put $1,000 in to start it. That was it.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, right.
We operated out of my office, you know, and this was just for ordering some prototypes and whatever. And it was super fun. But then we started focus grouping things. And what we found funny, other people didn't find as funny. And we were the writers, we were the artists. Now, we happen to have, between myself and one of my partners at the time, we're both artistic. So I'm pretty sure I had come up with Rudy, but I said to them, like, I don't want to be the artist here. I'm the CEO here. So like, somebody else has to take that due. So my partner Dan had taken it, and you know, we had a blast doing it. And then I started realizing like, maybe we shouldn't be the writers. So I put this idea out there of like, maybe we should source some comedians that do comedy writing and get some other thoughts in here. And then it started being like, well, these cards are good enough. I don't know why. And then you start seeing like there's creative differences. So you go, maybe before we really get deep into this, maybe we should just, because it wasn't our main source of income. It wasn't a source of income.
It was like a fun thing. And
it was a fun thing.
And
we go, all right.
Anymore.
Yeah, right. So you go, all right, you got to stop it. But you have to look at the business side of things. You have to look at where trends are going. And you also have to be willing to change. One of the things I learned in business early on, my pharma mentors, whether it was, my family that I worked with or the guy that we worked with originally, the model of business that we were taught, it doesn't change. There's a reciprocal flow of money. So if this money's coming in here, but then some of it's coming in a little bit later, and then you have to buy this and pay for it in 2 weeks, the end rule was like you have to have 1 month's worth of all of your costs and everything in the bank at all times, always as extra, and you'll be fine, right? And that's kind of what we built everything on. But there are nuances there, right? And okay, in pharma, that's not going away. And it changes, but everybody's going to get sick. Everybody's going to need medicine. I think we're good. My wife's an accountant. Everybody's always going to need an accountant, right?
Yeah.
In my business, management consulting, as much as we grew, once we started growing, I did say, oh, I have a goal to turn this into a $100 million consultancy and sell it to Bain or McKinsey and get a contract with them for a year when I sell it, and then leave and do the whole fucking thing again. Oops, sorry. And do the whole fucking thing again, right? And start it over and sell it again, And then I realized that there are bandwidth limits with kids, with having more kids, with getting remarried. And you go, you know what? I want to keep this as a boutique consultancy. It's here right now. I'm good. I don't need it to get any bigger. Let's stay right there. But then there are services that don't serve you as well, that are not as fun, that are maybe changing. We were talking about before, we have a marketing agency within. A lot of those services we've sort of sunsetted because we don't want, once TikTok came into play, Instagram Reels, all the video work, we know that that's a whole new level of work. We didn't want to do that. It's not the kind of marketing and social work that we wanted to do. So we started shifting to marketing consulting and then outsourcing the other stuff, because we want to evolve in a direction that serves us as well. I don't need to manage that kind of stuff. I know what a pain in the ass it is to own a marketing agency. I know that relationships are very subjective, and clients and marketers don't often see eye to eye on how things should be done. And I was like, all right, I think I should move away from this a little bit and do something else. The podcasting stuff that came into play for us, it was an evolution. It was like, we came back from the pandemic. I had a successful podcast. I had a second podcast. I kind of figured out the business. Hey, you know what? Let's make the office make some money for us. Let's start a production company and produce other podcasts. So it's constantly just evolving, not getting stuck in your ways. I remember working in a deli when I was a kid. I worked there for almost 10 years in total. I started there when I was 11. I worked there through college. And my favorite job still of all time, to this day. But an owner that just didn't change a thing. And it was slowly dying over the years. And you watch and go, oh, man.
Yeah.
What you got to do is this and this, and you're good to go. And nope. So you learn from that and go, businesses have to evolve. You can't just get stuck in the same mindset and think it's always going to work. So pivot, evolve, whatever you call it. I love calling it evolve because, if you can reinvent what a business looks like over time, and sort of change the game while you're doing it, you're always going to be a leader in the forefront, and your business is always going to be successful somewhat.
Wow.
It's learning. It's just constantly learning.
And taking the ego out so that you can learn.
Right. That's the biggest roadblock for most people.
Yeah.
It's getting out of your own way to say, I don't know the perfect way to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Big time. I had a lot of opportunities since then, and then this whole Speak thing happened for us.
Yeah. So we only have a couple minutes left, so I wanted to definitely get into Speak, how that evolved, and obviously it seems like you sunsetted the marketing agency, you had a little bit more free time, and you decided to transition out of the TEDx platform into your own.
Correct. There was a point where I said to you do have to once in a while, when you do stuff for free, a lot. TED is a free endeavor. I don't make money on TED. Not being a speaker, not being a producer, right? It's just very gratifying to help people, give them a stage. But once in a while, you have to sort of take inventory and go, all right, I can't just give everything away. I'm spending so much time doing it. I can't just give everything away. Maybe there's a business behind this. And then you see some stuff you don't like, right? I don't really want to get into that part of it, but like there's parts of TED, and I love TED Talks and TEDx Talks and what they do. But being a producer, you see stuff where you're kind of like, oh, I would do that a little different.
Yeah.
And so you run with it. And I conceptualized Speak about a year before my final TEDx Farmingdale. Worked on it for about a year. Close to the end of that year, everything became very clear of like what Speak needed to be, how we can carve a place for us in that world, and how we could be different than other platforms. And so I conceptualized it, talked to a couple of people, brought on some partners, and we launched in November of 2022. And it's been so cool. It's been just so much fun to create a platform where you have a lot of freedom behind putting people on stage, right? Like less restrictions than some of the other platforms have. And to be able to create something that is potentially global, right? It's cool. It's, there's a lot to say about being able to change lives and to have a company where you go, oh, this could be the one. Launchpad 516, I knew very shortly after I started it, I want to cap it here. I don't need any more than that. But this thing, because of how it can help people, because of the type of, it's not a local business, because of the type of business it is, you go, oh shit, this can really take off and do some great things.
Yeah, I mean, just from being in attendance for that first event and seeing the one in November, I was like, oh, this is it. There was a feeling in the room that I'm sure you felt as well, being
palpable. It was
crazy. There was
it.
I was like, oh, these stories are impactful, and I feel like you had a great mix of people all with their own different stories, and the way that you structured the event to have a theme, it just felt like, oh, it all clicked for me. It was all talking, obviously, beforehand, and learning about what the plan was for it, but the action of seeing it done, it is strong. There's something there,
that.
And I do believe that it will get where you plan it to go.
Yeah, and I'll plug it real quick. But Speak Talks are 6 to 10 minute talks that are given in a storytelling format, and they have 3 key moments: the moment of truth, moment of transformation, and the moment of impact. My partners and I, when we kind of sat down to design Speak Talks, we knew that we wanted something that was just that stood out, but something that spoke to us. So anytime I produced or wrote my own TED Talk, that moment of impact was really important to me. And that's where we kind of started with, and we reversed engineered it, and we built these things, and we go, I think this is good. And it wasn't until the event was actually happening and you see the audience's reaction where you go, oh, this is a big deal. So we scale this we don't produce these ourselves. Some of them we produce ourselves, but we scale this by having programs like channel partner programs where we bring on either speaking coaches or PR firms that represent speakers. They send us, they contract with us, these channel partners, and they send us speakers. We have producers that apply to produce events all over the world, right? We've done New York so far. We've done Dallas, Texas. We have Belfast coming up in October. We had to postpone that because I had gotten sick. We have Levittown, which we just announced in July. We have events going to be happening in Virginia, Florida, Utah. So we have a bunch of places where these events are happening, and slowly but surely, we created a model that is very easy to scale. And the more successful it becomes, then we bring more people onto the team, that can do this thing the right way. So we're excited about it. We have, myself, I'm the architect and the co-leader. My 2 partners, Fred Banney, he's the builder and one of the co-leaders, and Jason Martin is the engineer and one of the co-leaders. We came up with this business model where if this thing works, we want the feel, the vibe, the culture in that company to be one of creativity. We want it to be a vibe of investment. Every employee, every person that works with Speak is invested in the company. And so we thought, hey, why put the typical corporate hierarchy in there, which works for other companies? I am the CEO of Launchpad 516, but we didn't want a CEO for Speak. We wanted the leadership team to be the co-leaders and to describe with one word, what do? Well, I'm the architect. I'm the one that designed the blueprint for this whole thing, and I'm the one that strategizes all the growth here. So I'm the architect, right? Jason is the engineer. He's the one that handles the technical side, the production and everything. Yeah. And Fred is the one that, the builder. He's helping build our speakers. And, and so we thought it was a cool model. If it continues, hopefully it does. And we're successful at it, and we could build a whole new model for how businesses can operate that way.
No, that's really awesome. Cool. Experience, especially with your experience at TEDx and be able to carry all of that knowledge and to speak. It's just going to... I believe in it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
What are the connections and the people that you're looking for right now for that?
So we're looking for producers to produce events. We had our first first external producer in Dallas, which was Cheryl West-Leong. She was incredible. She threw an incredible event. We design these in a way that, like, hey, if you're going to produce an event, here's just the ground rules, which is a very short list. The talks don't change, right? Mm-hmm. These are the talks. Here's some branding guidelines for the stage. Otherwise, it's your event. Put your signature on it. We want it to look like you. We want it to be recognizable as a speak event, but we want it to look and sound like you. We want every event to be different, not cookie cutter. So producers are super important. So anybody that has produced events before or is very involved in the speaking world on the coaching side of things and can work with speakers, and knows how to put it on an event, we want those people to apply to produce. And they could do all that at speakevent.com. We're looking for channel partners. So that's speaking coaches, PR agencies, media agencies, speaking bureaus, anybody that represents speakers. We have different levels of membership for them. And then we're an invite-only platform. So our speakers come from the channel partners or from our internal invite committee or from the producers. The producers have the ability to invite up to 2 speakers for each event of their own, so that's it. And we will surprise people a couple of times a year and open public applications for a few days. But right now they come from the channel partners,
Very cool.
Universities, corporations. We do a thing called Speak at Work, which is private speak events at big companies, at their annual conferences or events. So anybody that just wants to get involved, just reach out. Speakevent.com. That's where all the info is. And shout out to you, Steve, and your team. Steve was part of our marketing team and production team. For our first couple of events, did a phenomenal job, and we hope to continue that in the future as we grow.
Yeah, we captured the magic that happened.
Yeah, you did. You guys did a phenomenal job, and it was cool to work with somebody that understood the vision.
It's cool to understand it a little further now after having this conversation, just understanding your story from the beginning.
Yep.
So thanks for coming on and telling it. It was really
nice. I appreciate you guys having me.
I think it was impactful for me personally. Just to kind of hear that.
Yeah, glad to hear it.
The story is the best part, man. That's and you're a good storyteller.
Thank you, man.
Loved
appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, George. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Got it.